What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. No, it's been quite a while, but today we're talking cameras, but maybe not the kind of cameras that we're used to. Talking about the iPhone 14 Pro. Going to talk about my experiences with it, why I upgraded, and what I like about it so far. And then once we get towards the end, we are going to compare photos and talk about Apple ProRaw and how the different lenses function. It's going to be pretty great. All right, so first thing we're talking about is why I upgraded. Pretty self-explanatory. Kind of just wanted to upgrade. The 14 Pro, I really liked the bump in megapixels on the camera, and I was looking for a change. I had the 12 mini, and I really liked the size of it, but the battery life was terrible and the screen size was too small sometimes. It was really nice others. And the refresh rate just got to bug me after a little while. Plus, I was really excited about the new cameras. I've really enjoyed the battery life on the 14 Pro, and that's one thing that I was looking to change whenever I was getting a new phone is I wanted to see how much better my battery life could be, because my 12 mini, I had to have it on a charger all day long, and if I didn't, then it would be dead by 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's on a work day when I'm not using it all throughout the day like I am on the weekends. And the 14 Pro has really impressed me. I've not had it get anywhere close to dying. I think I've had it get below 20% one time in the last 2 weeks that I've had it, and that's good in my book if you ask me. Another thing that I was pleasantly surprised with is the Apple ProMotion display. The display is really, really bright, it's really crisp, and it's so smooth. I didn't know what I was missing until I got this 120 hertz display. Marques Brownlee, MKBHD, talks all the time about how everything he thinks should be 120 hertz, but I didn't really know what I was missing until I had a phone that has a 120 hertz display. It's really smooth. The integrations, the apps, the scrolling, everything has been so smooth on this display, and I've been really impressed with it. It's also really bright outside, and that was one of the big selling points, is they talked about how bright it could go outside. I won't bore you with the tech specs, but it seems to be brighter than almost any other smartphone on the market. One of the other reasons I upgraded is I really wanted to get to a place where I was asking, you know what, can smartphones replace cameras in different shooting settings? And I think in a lot of them, the answer is yes. Not every scenario, and most, I would even say most scenarios, no. But there's some of them that it really could replace a camera. Apple releases a new phone every year. They release a new lineup every September, and it's usually unnecessary. But the one thing they did this year that was a little bit different than other years is they have an increase in the cameras by quite a bit. So they went from 12 megapixels to 48. And if that sounds like quite a bit, well, it's a pretty big jump. But all the images still get compressed down into a 12 megapixel image. So what you have is you have the flexibility of working with these bigger files, and then they get pushed down to a more manageable size. All right, let's talk cameras. But before we get there, I want to talk about a video that I watched last week from a creator named Patrick Tommaso. He's out of Canada, and he put out a really good video that detailed a lot of my thoughts. And I think one thing that he touched on that was really, really important is that you shouldn't listen to photographers and filmmakers whenever you are doing a review or looking for a new phone, because photographers and filmmakers are going to focus on different things than you are. And he makes a really good point that, you know what, if you want a new phone, get a new phone. Don't listen to anybody else. That being said, I do think that there are some things that make this camera system better than the old camera systems, and some things that are going to be beneficial going forward, especially in the digital world. Quick overview of the camera system. There's 3 lenses on it. There's a 0.5 lens, a 1x lens, and a 3x lens, a telephoto lens. And these come out to about 13 millimeters, 24 millimeters, and 75 millimeters. And the 24 millimeter camera is the one that you see most often, and it's the 1x camera, the 1x camera. Whenever you're on the camera system, you can see that there's a 2x option. And what that's doing is it's basically taking the whole sensor size, taking this big image right here, and then it's punching in to where it's only using the center 12 megapixels of it. So it's no longer using the big piece of it, but it comes out to about a 50mm normal lens, and that's a really good depth. I think that the 2x is a good crop and helps you adjust your framing whenever you don't want to use the telephoto lens, but you don't want to use the wider lenses as well. So I want to take some time and compare camera shots. This new iPhone has the option to shoot in 2 different formats. One of them is Apple ProRaw, and then the other one is just a normal image. And the biggest difference between those two is that the ProRaw files are going to give you a lot more flexibility, but they're going to be way bigger files. And the normal ones are going to give you less flexibility, but they're going to be a lot smaller and more compressed. You won't be able to do as much stuff to them, but there'll be a lot smaller files, and they're good for whenever you're on the go. So we're going to go to my computer and we're going to look and compare some different shots where I took one as a JPEG and one as a RAW file. And these haven't been edited yet, so you can see what is different in the RAW files compared to the normal JPEGs. All right, so this first image that we're looking at is a JPEG. And the first thing I'm going to say is that this was taken at 5 in the morning and it was really, really early. So sorry if it's pretty terrible photo quality. But first thing I'm going to look at right here is that this is totally blown out. It doesn't look all that great. It's not sharp. Granted, there's not a lot of light here, so I don't really know what I was anticipating, but I do know that this doesn't look super good. And this is one of the JPEGs that I was talking about, one of the normal files. Then if I go over here and I go to the RAW file, one of the first things that you'll be able to notice is that it doesn't have that huge flaring that it did earlier. And look how much better these looks. Look how much sharper this is, and look how much better the highlights are in this image. But it's overall just a cleaner and sharper image. It looks a lot more natural back here. You can see where the lights aren't. You can see how easy it is and how natural of a fall off that is, which is not something that you have in this JPEG over here. So you can see that this kind of looks overly sharp. It looks really digitally sharp, but it doesn't look natural like the ProRAW file does. So if I go back over here to this ProRAW file, you can see that it looks normal, it looks natural, and it's overall a much better image. Then I just kind of wanted to test out some of the different, some of the lenses. So this was taken in this same place, same lighting. So you can see that it just looks like a night photo. It doesn't look like anything special. This is with the 1x lens, but you can see how sharp this is. And I think that that's pretty impressive for the very little light that was out there. You can actually see a star or two right over there, which is pretty cool. So that was with the 1x lens. Now let's go to the wide angle lens. This one didn't look so great in the low light, and kind of disappointed about that, but I also get it. These lenses aren't supposed to be shot at this dark with this little light. So then if we go to the 3x lens, pretty sharp, still a little grainy over here, doesn't have the greatest image quality. So I would say that overall, the lens that I think held up the best out of the 3 was this one. And that could just be because it looks like it's overly sharpened or things like that. All right, so I took these as I was about to go on a run and stopped in the middle of the road. I don't advise doing that. Please be smart. Please be safe. And I stopped to take a photo. So this is with the normal lens, the 1x lens, and it's a long exposure. It's real dark. The only source of light is from a city that's way back over there, and the headlamps of the people that I'm running with right there. So it's not great lighting scenarios. And you know what? It kind of shows. Then we're going to look at a RAW photo that I took compared to a JPEG. So we'll do the RAW one first. And this was right around sunrise, as you can see right here. And one of the first things that you'll see as my computer processes this image is that this image is pretty sharp. So this was with RAW. This was shot in a RAW format. So there shouldn't be any extra production or anything done to it, but that's a pretty tight zoom that I'm doing whenever I whenever I zoom in right here in the middle of it, and once the computer kind of reads everything and processes it, that's pretty solid. Then if I go up to the JPEG, or the regular image that I took of the same thing, where I want you to look is I want you to look at where the sun is, where kind of the orange over there, orange and yellow, is meeting the blue. So first thing I'm going to see is that it's much more harsh, and there's a lot more contrast in this image, and overall it's just not as good of an image as the raw file is. And I think that's all right. I think that I still think it's a good photo, and I think it worked out pretty well. I think that the lens was fine. I think the camera system was fine, but I also think that whenever you look at the raw file, it's just a much better image overall. So next we're going to look at some fire photos that I took outside whenever I was burning some stuff in my chimenea the other night. And this one is with the wide angle lens, so the 0.5 lens. It did a pretty good job capturing the detail in the chimenea, in the fire, even though it was the wide angle lens. Then whenever I go over here to the normal or the 1x lens, I think that it still did a pretty good job. As the computer reads it, you can see just how much detail is still in this photo right here, especially whenever you look in the highlights. Look, you can actually see a fall off right there, and that's pretty cool. You can even see on the inside what the inside of my chimenea looks like, and I think that's pretty solid. Then, it's pretty dark back there. Didn't have any other available light other than my outside light that's right there. So if I go do the telephoto or the zoom lens right here, you can see lots of detail in this image right here. You can see just how many cracks are in the bark right there, the fire. You can see individual pieces of ash, and that's pretty cool. But you can't see a lot else besides just the fire, and that's partially the way I had it cropped, partially just because that's the nature of a really high contrast image like that. So next ones I'm going to go through. We went to the fair, and so I'm going to start with the JPEG. This is just a JPEG, normal lens, just took out my phone, see what it looks like. And it's fine. I mean, it's pretty soft. It'd be great in a pinch if someone texted me and said, "Hey, where are you?" I could say, "I'm at the fair." But what I would rather do is I would rather take my time and compose this image with the raw files, because the raw files immediately have a better fall off. It looks more natural right there. There's less contrast. And look how much clearer this guy is than he was in the first photo. But overall, there's a lot more detail, and I think that it's a much nicer looking image. And this is with no editing. This is with nothing done to it. Then this next photo is with the wide angle lens, still shot in ProRaw, shot in Apple ProRaw, and it holds up pretty well. I mean, I think you can read corn in a cup pretty well. You can see that says drinks, I think, but it's kind of far away. And then I'm going to go to the JPEG that I took with the wide angle lens. And what do we see? Overly sharp from the top, lots of contrast. And oh, it actually looks like we can see drinks right there too. Oh, well, that's the wrong lens. Huh. Here we go. Whenever we zoom in on the wide angle JPEG at the fair, what do we have? Kind of got a lot of mush in this dark environment. The colors still render out really nicely, but I don't think it's anything quite like the other raw files that we were looking at. Then I wanted to pull up this picture of my wife because I think that it's one of my favorite photos I've ever taken. I loved how easy and natural it was and how great this picture was. So this was shot in RAW on the 1x lens, and look how sharp her eye is. I mean, look how far I had to zoom out, and you can still see, the detail in her hair. I mean, the raw files are really impressive, and I was able to get some pretty good edits out of these as well. Here's another one that I shot in RAW that this is one of my favorite pictures I've taken of my wife. We had to get a funnel cake whenever you're at the state fair, of course. And I liked how well the Ferris wheel held up. I thought that the colors rendered out pretty nicely there. I also liked how she looked. I think she's really cute. And the funnel cake, you can see how much powdered sugar was on there and just how horribly unhealthy this was for us. But the detail in the ProRAW photos and just the overall image quality has been really impressive. So last RAW file from the fair that we're going to look at before we look at some JPEGs is this one. So this photo, this was in RAW and there wasn't a lot of light. And so to maintain the image fidelity, what happened is it slowed down the shutter speed. You can see how blurry all of this is right here. You can see that that's just moving while I'm taking my photo. And if I could control that like I could on a normal camera, I would try to change that unless I was going for a stylistic effect. So you can see up here, this is taken on a phone because you have all the lights and everything. One of the biggest downsides of phone photography is whenever you have practicals or you have other lights in the shot that leave these trace markers up there. So last couple images from the fair. This one I took as a live photo and then I turned it into a long exposure image. And I don't know, I just kind of like the way it looked. It's not a great photo, to be honest, but I see how, I saw how soft it was, and part of that could just have been me moving or things like that. But the last thing that I want to show from the fair was this image. So this was the same place, same picture as this RAW photo, but just look how contrasty this is and oversaturated. Just from the start, this one has a lot of issues in my mind and some things I would want to change in post that I wouldn't be able to because it was shot in a lower quality. So when you look at this, you can see that this is really, it's a lot more flat. The colors are a lot more pleasing. And I think that it is a better image than this one, even if my graded image or edited image looked something like this. So that's my overview of the iPhone cameras. One last thing that I want to talk about is active stabilization. So that was a new thing on the 14 Pro and Pro Max was active stabilization in video. And let me tell you, it's pretty solid. I was really, really impressed with active stabilization and how good it is because as you can see from this clip right here, it doesn't look like I'm moving at all. And I am running next to my friend here and it's pretty great. I mean, I'm really happy with active stabilization. I think I'm going to use that a lot going forward, especially in different running projects that I'm doing where I can't take a camera with me. Video coming soon on how I ran a half marathon holding a Leica camera. Stay tuned. That's all I got. I'm going to hit stop on my screen recording. Stop. There you go. That's all I got. So final thoughts on the Apple 14 Pro. I think it's really solid and it's my favorite phone I've ever had. Maybe apart from my first iPhone when everything was new and smartphones were amazing and the most popular apps on the App Store were the most basic things that you could build. Outside of that, I think this is probably my favorite iPhone. But it should be, right? Shouldn't the new iPhone every year be everyone's favorite iPhone? I think that Apple is just trying to get everybody to upgrade year after year with these minimal changes that only appeal to certain people. For me, it was a logical upgrade because my old phone was bad and I needed a better camera system that I could take with me anywhere. I'm on the go a lot. I don't always have time to bring my camera here. I don't always have time to set up a big light and things like that. And so I need something that's reliable, that looks really good, and that is mobile more than anything else. And that's what the iPhone provides me. So the age-old question is, should I get the new iPhone? And the answer is only if you want to. If it's going to make you really happy and bring you a lot of joy, like testing this camera has for me, and like learning a new medium of photography has for me, yeah, for sure. But if you don't need a new phone, by no means should you go into debt just to buy a phone or sell your old phone or sell other things just so you can buy a new phone. It's a phone. You can't really go wrong nowadays. They're all really good. And so if you want one, great. By all means, I think you should get the new iPhone. But don't make it hard on yourself just to be able to do that. It's not that great. Your old phone is probably still great. on the subject of cameras, the thing that matters the most is that the tool that you have, whether it's an iPhone, whether it's a Leica, Hasselblad, Sony, Canon, Red, whatever, the thing that matters the most is that your camera inspires you to get out there and take photos or make videos or whatever. If it's not going to do those things, sell it. That's that. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to the channel. I am hoping to put out a lot more videos this fall, and I'm looking forward to interacting with you guys in the comments. If you have a favorite iPhone, what is it? I want to know. All right. Thanks, guys.